Thank you very much, and very good afternoon, everybody. Now, a question to you, and hands up, please. How many of you have been punched, kicked, spat at, sexually or verbally harassed as part of your day jobs as journalists? Okay, there's a few of you. I'm very pleased to see it's only a few. But the point that I'm going to make is that cabin crew, whose job and role it is to keep us safe, secure and comfortable on flights, shouldn't be subject to that kind of behaviour either. Nor should our passengers be subject to it or to witness it. But the reality is that they do. They are affected and impacted by the unruly behaviour of a tiny minority of our customers. And we must remember that this type of behaviour would not be accepted or tolerated in a restaurant, on a train, or in an office. And if it did happen, we could rightfully expect that there would be consequences for the perpetrators. Now, that doesn't always happen for incidents that happen on international flights. There is no punishment oftentimes. There is no deterrent or little deterrent, and I'll come back to that point in a moment. But what I would like to do for you today is to give you the latest information that we have, the latest statistics on the frequency of incidents, unruly passenger incidents, and also the different types and severity of incidents that we see. I'd also very quickly like to highlight some of the work that we're doing in terms of prevention of these kind of incidents and work that we're doing to enhance the international legal deterrent. Now, I'm going to share with you some statistics, and those of you that have been here before know that I always give a health warning with these statistics. They're not perfect. What they are reports that come to our safety database, the Safety Trend Evaluation, Analysis and Data Exchange System, or STEEDS. Not every airline is a member of IATA, not every airline participates in STEEDS, so these are not perfect figures, but they're the only global data set that we have available on this issue. Now again, before I get into the data, let me say that the number of reports, the number of airlines participating in STEEDS changes from year to year. So in order to compare apples with apples, we're always very careful to look at what we call the incident rate. And we look at the reports per 1,000 sectors. The incident rate that we saw in 2017, we're looking at 2017 numbers, is 1 incident for every 1,053 flights. That is more, so we've seen more incidents per 1,000 flights. And 2016 figures were 1 incident for every 1,424. If we look at the actual number of unruly passenger reports, you'll notice that they've gone down. We've reduced from 9,837 actual reports to 8,731, so about 1,100 reports less. But as you can see from the yellow line, the actual rate of reporting per 1,000 sectors has increased. What about the levels of unruly behaviour? Well, again, those of you that have been to this update before will recognise these 4 different levels that we use. Level 1 incidents, these are typically verbal in nature and include non-compliance with safety requirements. Level 2 incidents are physical actions, kicking, punching, spitting, obscene or lewd physical contact, as well as damage to the aircraft systems and safety equipment. In both of those cases, you can see that there's been a slight reduction in the proportion of level 1 and level 2 incidents from 2016 to 2017. What is quite concerning, though, is that for the level 3 incidents in particular, these are life-threatening incidents, life-threatening behaviour, including the display of weapons and clear threat to injure, an intent to injure. We've actually seen an increase in both the number and the proportion of overall incidents. The same applies to level 4 incidents These are actual or attempted breaches of the flight deck security door, so attempted acts of sabotage or a credible threat of unlawful seizure of the aircraft. So what were the top 3 onboard issues in 2017? Well, you can see there, non-compliance with smoking regulations makes up 24%, 49% with non-compliance with general other safety regulations, and 27% is alcohol and other forms of intoxication. And I think the point of this slide is that when people talk about unruly and disruptive behaviour on board flights, they automatically think that the trigger is always alcohol. And I think that this actually demonstrates that that's not necessarily the case. Now, further to that point, again, when we look at the intoxication figures, you see there from alcohol 2,454 reports in 2017, of which 561 were reports involving consumption of own alcohol. And I think, again, this comes back to the point that people often think it's what people have consumed before they've got on the flight. What this actually does demonstrate is that there is a personal decision by certain people to actually bring alcohol on board, whether that's duty-free, and then consume it. That's the problem. Now that's the figures. Let's turn to what we're doing about it. Now, in 2014 at our AGM in Doha, we set out an AGM resolution, which was a strategy to tackle this problem. And one of the things that our airline members asked us to do was to work with various other stakeholders in the aviation value chain and come up with examples and ideas of best practice that could be used internationally to try and prevent incidents from happening. Now, one market where there has been a spike in unruly passenger incidents in recent years, and you see there the numbers from the UK Civil Aviation Authority, is the United Kingdom. Many of these cases involve intoxication. Many were focused on summer months, so the peak of the summer. Now, I'm not trying to pick out the UK as being the only market with an issue with disruptive passengers, because it's not. But what this shows is a particular example of how the industry has come together with an example of best practice to try and tackle it. We've launched with the Airport Operators Association, with the UK Travel Retailers Federation, with Airlines UK, which is a UK-based airline representative body, a campaign known as One Too Many. It was government-backed, it happened for 10 weeks, and fundamentally its aim was to try and identify and remind passengers of the need to fly responsibly and to be responsible when they're flying. The education campaign was all about what are the consequences to you personally. It could be that there is a 2-year prison sentence waiting for you, or a £5,000 fine, that's around $6,300. It could be that you miss the stag weekend, you miss your golf weekend with your friends. These are some of the consequences of that unruly behaviour. Focus was on specific demographics, particular routes. 11 airports were involved, and our deployment was on 3 levels. Physically within airports, at point of sale and throughout the airport environment, social media, traditional media as well. Now, it's too early to see if this campaign has paid off in terms of a reduction, but certainly we got massive exposure for the campaign. We had over 100 traditional media reports. We had 5.6 million impressions on social media, so a lot of awareness was raised. On its own, I can't say that it's likely to have made a difference to the results or to the incident levels in the UK, but together with the work that we're doing as part of the UK Aviation Code of Conduct and Code of Practice on disruptive passengers, which sees airlines, airports, the police, retailers, all doing specific actions, then this is what will make the difference. And we understand that the 2018 figures do indeed show a reduction in incidents in the UK so far this year. So what are we going to move on to for 2019? Well, we're continuing that One Too Many campaign. We're looking at ski season. We're looking at seeing if we can extend that to other jurisdictions as an example of best practice. We're working with the European Aviation Safety Agency, IATA, on a public information campaign. But of course, as you heard from the start of my presentation, that is the prevention side of it. There's also work to be done on the deterrent. One of the major issues that we have today is that there is a gap in the international law known as the Tokyo Convention, which means that those who are accused of unruly and disruptive behaviour often escape prosecution. Now, we know that passengers want to see unruly passengers face consequences for what they do. How do we know that? Because we had a poll, an IATA poll, of 2,500 people, passengers in 5 jurisdictions. They said that 32% of them said that they'd seen or witnessed unruly or inappropriate behaviour on board flights in the last 6 months. 80% said that they wanted criminal prosecutions of those perpetrators. So the second key element of our work is really to make sure that we get that consistency and that consistent international jurisdictional requirement that will allow states to be able to prosecute disruptive passengers. And that's known as the Montreal Protocol. So where are we up to with that? 22 states required to bring this international legal instrument into force. We're at 15 today, so we're almost there. We've got 2 states that will ratify by the end of the year. That's Kuwait and Malaysia, so it's good news. And we have many other states at an advanced state of progress in the ratification process. But we do need stronger leadership from some of the really big aviation states. And I've highlighted a few there. I would add India to that list to ensure that we have the international uniformity, that we have that strong international deterrent that will help us to tackle this issue. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I would like to highlight today is that are we solving this problem? I don't think we can say that from the statistics. It's still a significant issue. We're working hard on the prevention. We need help from governments on the deterrent and enforcement side. But it's clear, we get this formula right, we have an even safer, even better flying experience for all of us. I wish you all a safe flight back and an unruly passenger-free experience. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tim. Please take a seat. We've got time for a few questions. Yes, Christiana, go ahead.
Hi, Tim.
Hi.
I have 2 questions on the level 3 incidents. I assume that those are the ones where airlines would go down. I mean, would have an unplanned stop to get rid of that person. Just to confirm that. The second question is it correct to read that there were 279 incidents compared to 66 the year before? Do you have any idea whether this might have been due to different kinds of reporting? Or is that actually really a lot more dangerous incidents?
Okay, on the first part, in terms of would the aircraft divert from that, I think that's a question for the actual severity of the incident, whether the crew are able to bring that incident to under control. Certainly, I would think that restraint of the passenger in those cases would very likely happen. But it would be down to where the aircraft is in the flight, if the unruly and disruptive passenger is actually complying with crew instruction, etc. Those would be decisions made by the captain and by the crew. In terms of reasons behind it, no, I think it's very, very difficult for us to pinpoint actually what's driving that, whether that is a reporting change that has come through. But so I can't say what is behind that or even give an indication of why that might be. We will have to see over a period of time if it continues and then do some more analysis.
Yes, in the middle, that's it. Yeah.
so I hope it works. Rainer During from Flieger Review Magazine and Tagesspiegel in Germany. I have two questions. Number one is, you concentrated with your campaign in the UK. Do you have identified other countries where an action like this seems to be necessary? And the question number two, if I read correct, the level 4 incidents raised 150% from last year. And do you have any explanation on that?
So other countries first. Yes, I was using the UK as an example, and the reason that the UK is being used as an example is because stakeholders have come together in the UK to say that this is a problem. They've identified it's a problem, and they've looked and they've realised that actually, if they're going to tackle that problem, it does require airports, airlines, retailers, the whole value chain to come into play on that. I've read that, for example, in Amsterdam, there's been a significant rise in incidents. But again, so that's one country. In certain parts of Spain, we've had the Balearic Islands, Palma de Mallorca, for example. They've highlighted specific issues there as well. But it's the requirement, in order to move forward and to use a campaign like this, it does require the different stakeholders, the airlines into those markets to actually come forward and other stakeholders to come forward and propose a solution and identify what the particular issues are there. When it comes to level 4 incidents, what I have to say there is that whether somebody is actually trying to breach the flight deck door, or they are, for example, they're intoxicated and they fall on the door, that might be actually classified as a level 4 incident. Okay, so when we're looking at the reports, we're trying to work out what was this, but it would have been reported as an attempted breach. So again, we need to be very careful with these figures, not to say that there has been a definite increase in the number of level 4. It's what we're seeing reported in the data set.